Okay, so this is our exam review. And what I'm going to tell you is what you need to know, or what you don't need, in some ways what you don't need to know. Because you can go back and you can watch the reviews for the tests, and you can go back and watch the solutions to the tests. And from that, you can get the information that you need if you just pay attention to what I have to say. So this is not going to be hugely long, but it will at least eliminate some things that I might have covered on the test that I'm not going to ask you to be responsible for. So I'm going to start with test number 1, which was chapter 4. So actually most of what's on chapter 1 I'd want you to be responsible for. So yeah, actually I think all that's important. So you probably want to go review the plotting trig functions. And we basically concentrate on the sine and the cosine functions. And most people got the amplitude correct. The key thing, I guess the mistake that people made, so I'm going to point this out. So let's say we had something like y is equal to 4 times the sine of 2x minus pi over 6. Okay, so if I wanted you to plot that particular function, one thing you need to know, of course, is that the sine function starts at 0, goes up to 1, goes to 0, down to -1, up to 1. That's the standard sine function, the sine of x. So if you have a 4 in front of it, the amplitude is 4. Now the period, the time, or the change in x required for you to go through one cycle, is determined by this number here. So remember, the period is equal to 2 pi divided by this number a, if you want to call that small a. So in our case here, it would be 2 pi divided by 2, or pi. So things happen twice as quickly. Instead of taking 2 pi to go one full cycle, it only takes pi to go one full cycle. And then as far as the shift, and I'm definitely going to put one of these on here because nobody listens to me, so I'm going to see him. Well, not everybody. There are 3 people listen to me. What you do is you factor this number out of both terms. So if I divide this by 2, I get 1. If I divide this by 2, I'll get pi divided by 12. So the x shift in this case is plus, because we have x minus h plus pi over 12, not pi over 6. Okay? So you'll definitely see that on there. But I think, to be honest, everything in this first chapter is game for the exam. Now, for test number 2, which was chapter 5, I'm not going to do any trig identities, and I'm not going to do any multiple angle type things. The only thing I'm going to test you on is solving equations. So the problems that involved that on the test were 1, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so the other ones, 2, 6, and 7, don't have to worry about. But I'm going to put a heavy emphasis on these kinds of problems. And so you can go back and look at the review for this test. You can look at the solution for this test, and I don't really need to go into it. One thing that was consistently done wrong was the cases of where, this was problem number 5, where we had the sine of 3x. So I'm not going to do that problem for you. Let's say the sine of 3x equals 0.6. You know, some people did the sine of x equals 0.2, but you never can divide anything out that's in the argument. So that definitely is not right. Really all we have to do is, it's easier than this in some ways. We just define some new variable alpha equal to 3x. So we find out the values of alpha where the sine equals 0.6. And then once you find those values of alpha, then you know that x is equal to, if you solve this for x, you get alpha over 3. So you just take everything and divide by 3. So I know a lot of people didn't do well on that one. I think it's important to know what to do. So make sure you look at those 4 problems. Okay, the last test, you know, there was the law of sines, which is the first problem, which I'm going to post the solution for test if I haven't already done it. I can't remember whether I sent that out, but if I haven't, I will. So we have the law of sines, the law of cosines. I gave you a pretty easy one for the law of sines, so what I would say is review other scenarios. So, you know, in this case, the problem that I gave you in the test was I gave you 2 angles and the side. So angle, side, angle, basically. So the other ones were side. Let's see, what was it? It was basically given this angle here, say angle A, and then we're given side A, which is over here, and then we're given side B right there. So that's angle side side, or side angle angle, or angle side side, I guess. And remember, there's all those different scenarios, and you can bring in that sheet that I gave you. You know, depending upon you know, the relative magnitudes of A and B, there were the different scenarios. So it might be a little harder than the one that was on the previous test. And the law of cosines, you know, the one I gave you was, I gave you the angle and 2 sides. And so you could find this, say the side 1, side 2. You could find side 3. You know, this squared was equal to that squared plus that squared minus 2 times this times that times the cosine. And then there was the alternative form, which was the cosine of, say, A is equal to B squared plus C squared minus A squared over 2BC. So that's the other one. I'd give you 3 sides, and you'd have to find the angle. So make sure you know how to do that. That particular case, and that would give you the angle, and then you could use the law of sines to find one of the other angles, and you could use the sum of the angles equals 180 to find the final one. So think about that. Okay. As far as vectors, I'm going to leave vectors off of there. You guys did pretty good. I'm not going to do anything with ellipses, and you need to know how to do hyperbolas and parabolas. So you got plenty of examples to look at that. One thing, you know, we had 3 possibilities. I could give you in standard form. And then plot. So that's one scenario. You can go back and look at your homework. So that was one, given in standard form. And from that you can get A, B, and C, and you can get H and K. The second one was to put in standard form, and that was the last problem on the last test, which was that was an ellipse. So be prepared to either put the hyperbola or the parabola in standard form. If you didn't get that right, then you probably want to learn how to do it. And the other one I want you to be able to do, I won't do it for the hyperbolas, but for the parabolas, instead of putting in a standard form or giving you the equation, I might give you, you're given the, say, the vertex and the equation for the directrix. And from that, you have to come up with the equation. And also, in all of these cases, I want you to be able to, just like in the last test, coordinates for the center, for the hyperbola, the center, and the vertices and the foci. And for the parabola, there is no center, but you'd need the vertex and the focus and the equation for the directrix. So now what I've shown you is sometimes it's better to plot the stuff out, start at the center, say of the hyperbola, use the A and B to draw your box. You don't really need the foci to draw it, but you still need to know how to figure it out, what the actual position is, and then you can take the location of the center and just take that coordinates and count to get the vertices, the coordinates of the vertices and the foci. So that's it. So let's go back, make sure we all understand here about what I'm saying you need to know how to do. Pretty much all of chapter 4. Go back and study that. It was kind of like the basic stuff that we need to know to do the rest of it. Chapter 5, solving trig equations. And be prepared to do non-unit circle. I probably will put a non-unit circle problem on there. So you need to be able to use your calculator, figure out what quadrangular solutions are and all that kind of stuff. Then chapter 6, law of sines, maybe the other kind of problem. So again, look at the review, look at the homework. You can bring in that sheet to help you guide you. Law of cosines, think about having this kind of problem. And then hyperbolas and parabolas. So I'm going to have the test. I haven't made it up yet. I kind of have a general idea of what I'm going to do, but it will be available at the Rockbridge Center and at the testing center here at the main library on Wednesday. So you can take it either place. Just let me know if you decide to do it somewhere different than you normally take the test. I've already heard from one student about doing that.